Welcome to another episode of Noob Repair. This is a special episode. I'm joined by my good friend Eric.
Yo.
And he has done quite a lot of mod work on systems. You did my Sega Saturn way back in the day, a couple of years ago. And today we are here to show you how to mod properly, safely mod your Super NES so that way it can play Super Famicom games. So to give you an example, we have 3 carts just to kind of demonstrate what the carts look like and basically how much damage you would have to do in order to get a standard Super Famicom cart into your system. Now, a lot of people may say, oh, you could just buy a Game Genie and use a Game Genie. And
or even a pass-through adapter.
Right, just something that you can use to make it, because that's really it. There's nothing other than plastic hardware stopping you from being able to use this system.
Don't say that 100% because there may be some games that are like region locked.
Oh, sure.
By the actual ROM chip itself.
Right. As in particular, some of the PAL games that have come out.
That's because they run at a different
frequency. Hertz. Right. Yeah. So most PAL games run at 50 hertz, whereas most US and Japan and Canada and all those games run at 60 hertz on most CRT TVs. So. Yeah, so we're going to go ahead and first show you the games that we're talking about, and just to kind of give comparison. So
this is an American Super Nintendo cartridge. Oh, I gotta lean up and hold it to the camera.
It's just my copy of Mortal Kombat 3.
And this is a Japanese Super Famicom cartridge.
Just a copy of some fishing game. I know.
Now, if you look at the underside of the cartridges here, I'm going to line them up and hold them in front of the camera. You'll see the circuit boards are the same exact size.
Right.
The contacts right there. But the difference is these tabs on the American cartridge, or rather these holes on the American cartridge, aren't there on the Japanese cartridge.
Right. And so if you take a look at this game right here, this is a copy of Battle Zekiden, and it's a pretty neat little beat 'em up that I purchased a while back. It's a Super Famicom exclusive. If you want to see a really great review on it, check out Import Gaming for the Wins review, my buddy Jimmy Hoppa, and I'll link that down below so you could watch that. So on the bottom of the cart, now everyone's going to kind of freak out, those of you who are against damage to carts, but just know that this was the back of the fishing game. This was done purely as an educational purpose, so that way you can see how much damage you would have to do to the back of a cart, because it's not the front of the cart that causes the problem, it's the back of the cart. So
first, let me preface this by saying the main reason Michael probably did this is because he didn't want to modify his system.
Right, okay, so I am a stickler when it comes to consoles. I really don't like modifying hardware itself. I like the hardware to be as clean as possible, and one of the reasons why I haven't modded this is I picked up the Super Nintendo a couple years back, and it is just such a clean system. I mean, if you look at the colors and everything, there's no yellowing really on it. Like, it looks so pristine, and I really didn't want to, damage it. But, after some convincing on Eric's part, I have decided to mod the system. So we've decided to give you a little tutorial to show you how to do it.
And what we're going to be doing is, it might be hard to see on the camera.
You can zoom in real quick there.
Down on the, no, I think I can see it. Down on the inside, you can see it there on that side, and
tilt it like that.
Yeah, I'm not a weatherman, so those 2 tabs are inside a tray that sits around the cartridge slot, and they gear into the backside of the American cartridge to only allow cartridges with those holes in it to fit into the system.
Right. So on the back of this Super Famicom cart, what I have here, this is the back of the fishing cart, is I've completely destroyed the bottom of the cart. This is how much damage you would have to do. And what I tried to do is do as little damage as possible to the bottom, but I just want to take off the bottom and show you just the bottom of the back. It looks like a dog got to it. I mean, it's pretty brutal.
Bark, bark.
Yeah, so, but what we're going to do today is show you how you don't have to do this, and you don't have to use a Game Genie. You can just mod the system itself. So why don't we get started? All right, so right now we're just going to go ahead and first start dismantling the Super Nintendo.
It has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of those security screws that you see.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
No.
6, 7,
5, 6. This is a threaded hole, giggity, so that if there had ever been any add-on attachment, add-on device released in the United States, the system would have had provisions to be secured to it from that.
Gotcha. Kind of like with the GameCube player. Or the GameCube's Game Boy player, right?
Yep, that's got a little coin screw that holds it together.
And this was probably most likely an adapter that was used, because that wasn't used anywhere on anything in the US.
I think that's the same...
Maybe the X-Band? No, the X-Band plugged in at the top.
That is the same port, I believe, on the bottom of the Super Famicom that lets you use the satellite view, or Satellaview, however you pronounce it.
I'll move it back a little bit. There you go.
It's tough because the holes for these screws are exactly the same width as the portion of my bit driver here.
Yeah, now the bit driver that we're using is pretty standard for just opening up consoles and games. You can look up, if you look up what, security bit.
Yeah.
I think on eBay you can get them for pretty cheap.
This is interesting. Alright, so yeah. These two screws on this particular model, I don't know if it changed with like different hardware revisions.
Right.
They're pretty deep in there.
This version of the console is the Killer Instinct version. It's the one that came with the bundle for Killer Instinct.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I mean, the system itself is just a standard system, but...
Are any of these magnetized? No, I'm gonna possibly drop all the screws on the floor. Or one. Anyway.
Oh, there it goes. We got it. Alright, so once you do that, then you've got the top off. And as far as what we're looking at, where's that bottom piece?
So this is the fun thing with older Nintendo hardware. They had so many funky little bits and bobs.
Now the reason why we're doing it this way, by the way, is you could honestly just do like a dirty cut. That's what she said. Where you go in and while the system is closed, you go in, just move this, and then you can chop off the piece that you're looking to chop off. So the tabs that we're talking about that block it are right back there, you'll see. Right there, there's one. And then the other one, if this would get out of the way, right there. Right there. So those are the two tabs that we're gonna cut out.
So yeah, you could just go in with a pair of pliers and twist them off,
right?
You know, without even opening the system up. But if you want to do it a little more cleanly, without, you know, leaving a raggedy mess inside there, once you get the top lid off, there are two or three different plastic panels that hold all of the switches and that sort of cartridge tray together. On earlier models, Super Nintendos and I believe Super Famicoms, they had a locking mechanism. So when you would turn on the machine, you know, slide the power switch up, it had a little piece that came through this door right here. Like this arm is probably part of the mechanism.
Yeah, it is, because you can see the... Yep. That's the reset, I believe.
No, the reset's
That's the power? Okay, yeah, because you had it flipped.
So if you look, older SNES and Super Famicom cartridges had an inset notch in front of the cartridge.
And then they changed, as far as Super Nintendo goes, they used to have a notch similar, but then they changed it to this kind of inlay. Yeah, so if you have an old locking Super Nintendo and you pull the cartridge out, it'll just pull right out anyway and disregard the lock. I guess they figured people knew well enough that they didn't need to remove cartridges while the system was on. Right. So they got rid of the lock mechanism. Cost-saving features, you know? You're a cost-saving feature.
Nice.
Sick burn drop.
Alright. This may come out easily. It may not. Oh, it is all one piece.
So we're taking the screws out of where? Here?
So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then 6 and 7.
Okay, so 7 screws.
7 Dragon Balls, 7 Chaos Emeralds. Right here, there's a spring for the reset switch. You see how it always goes back down? Right. It's held in with a spring. You have to take the spring off of its little post before you can. Might be hard to show. Watch it go flying across the room. Sorry. There we go.
All right.
So now, this whole piece should come up. And I don't know if you noticed before, but part of the top of the Super Nintendo came off. I don't know if that's because they expected it to be modular for design purposes and maybe put a different label on it, or who knows what.
Yeah, I think it's always had that Super Nintendo.
Well, it has, but you never know what they might have been trying to future-proof it for.
Right. So the tabs are right there.
Tabs are right down in there, and
get a good shot of this so you guys can see. This is a much better shot. So this right there, that tab, and then this tab. Those are the ones that we're going to be removing today.
And there's no real, correct way to do it. You just sort of cut them out of there.
You have to be very gingerly and loving. You have to like coo the Super Famicom, like it's going to be okay. And do you know the mating call for the Super Nintendo?
What is the mating call for the Super Nintendo?
All right, you're good. Now the Super Nintendo is ready.
It was ready long ago after I ripped it open.
All right.
So, there's the first tab down there. All I've got is basically just a pair of small wire cutters. Obviously this isn't wire, but they've got a decent angle on them.
This is like circumcision.
Leave that one alone. And you just hug up against the housing of it there. Cut into it a little bit. And the problem is this isn't very brittle plastic, so it's not going to.
Right, it's kind of thick.
Yeah,
that's
it's
what
not
she
gonna.
said.
It's not gonna snap off. So once you've done an initial cut, the tab will be easier to worry off of there, and then it'll just sort of pry right off.
Right. Look at that, huh?
You can do the same thing over here. Unfortunately, yeah, no matter what we do, it's going to be in shadow. No, literally, there's no different way to do it. You can see it's pinched. Got a good handle on it. All right. Now, if you notice, it didn't perfectly come off, and it's not going to perfectly come off.
Right.
So the best thing to do afterward is to just get some sort of X-Acto knife, a utility knife, a hobby knife, and just go in there with your steadiest hand and carve it down. For the most part, that alone may be enough to get a cartridge in there. I wonder if you can see it from here. Well, of course that one's going to fit. That's the American one.
Try that one.
You're basically looking for clearance issues down on the bottom. I think that's good enough, but I'm going to clean it up. It's not going to be an easy thing to capture on video, so we'll just clean it and then show a picture of it after the fact. All right, so I have cleaned up the two tabs as best as I could. What you want to do is make sure that you remove enough of the material that the back of the cartridge will fit in, and you want to keep it flush with this bottom lip so that the cartridge can be inserted all the way down. If it's sticking up like say 1/8 of an inch or something like that,
yeah, it won't work.
Yeah, you're not, well, it may still work.
It will be finicky. It could pop out while you're playing the
game.
game.
It could like wobble a little bit
right.
more. But yeah, basically you just want to make it as flush with this bottom edge as you can, and you want to remove as much of the material on the back side as possible.
And just to kind of show you how that looks, that's an idea. So it's pretty smooth, close. It's as close as possible. So, and what were the tools that you used to do that?
I just used a utility knife and like a flathead screwdriver. It's nothing fancy. That's a Phillips.
Oh. Whoops, here we go.
It's absolutely nothing fancy. You could probably also use a Dremel. I don't like having dust flying all over the place when I'm working on something simple like this.
Yeah,
so
but it's just to shave it off, so that way.
But yeah, so obviously the American cartridge fits right on in there. I don't know if you can really see that gap.
No, not really.
But now also the Japanese cartridge will fit right in there without any issue either.
Yes.
And then basically just put it back together the same way you took it apart. And
yeah.
Hopefully it should work.
Let's showcase that, because this is Noob Repair.
Okay, yeah, fair enough. There is a modular piece that sits on the front of the system here. and that also acts as the threads that some screws connect into. So once you put that piece in, you're holding it, be careful not to jostle this around. If you do, the spring just slips under a little notch in this other panel, and then it folds back. That's how you have tension to keep the
so that way it'll open.
So just slide this right back over on top of it, and then start putting it back together.
And that's just our Phillips head?
Yeah. Once you get inside the machine, there aren't any security screws. The security screws are only on the
outside, just to get into the system.
Because once you get into the mainframe, you have access to everything anyway.
You gotta go through the matrix, man. Super Nintendo Matrix.
Some people might be watching this and noticing me spinning the screw counterclockwise before I start tightening it. Over the years of me fixing all sorts of little,
doohickeys.
Yeah, anything.
Thingamabobs. Putting the thingy-bob in the what's it here.
Giggity. I have accidentally and unintentionally stripped the threads out of the, the plastic posts that the screws go into. And I realized that if you put gentle pressure, like just the weight of the screwdriver on the screw, and twist it backwards, you will feel when the screw falls into its original threads. I don't know if you can see, I am barely twisting this at all, and it is threading right back into its original threads.
Right.
So if you're careful and you don't over tighten it, you don't give it too much torque, you can just keep using the same threads and you won't wear it out if you, for whatever reason, happen to be taking your Super Nintendo apart multiple times in a year.
So another thing you can do is, if you have some rubbing alcohol, this is 91% isopropyl, and some Q-tips. This is everything that we found that was really bad in the Super NES. So we were able to clean it up a little bit. Specifically, it was like on the corners here, there was some soda of some sort. So basically, just use the Q-tip to get all that out in the isopropyl alcohol, the rubbing alcohol. It's something you can get at pretty much any grocery store or Rite Aid, Walgreens, etc., etc. And then if you do have...
I believe they're called pharmacies.
Ooh. And if you do have a flathead screwdriver, what you can do is you can use that to scrape out anything that's dry. Just go really gently.
Professional stuff here.
Yeah.
Basically, just use common sense when you're carefully cleaning it.
Yep.
And there, it's back together. You see the power switch. Reset has its spring reattached.
Right.
And you can see the cartridge slot works, and now those tabs are missing.
Cool. Let's put the whole thing back together then.
This is 25 years ago, 1991.
25 years ago. Yes. 1991.
Now, if you happen to be like me and you have a cheap bit driver whose barrel doesn't quite fit down into here, be careful that you don't accidentally over tighten the screws. Not only could you possibly strip the screws, or rather strip the posts that the screws go into, I have heard that these security bits are rather flimsy and they can strip
get stuck.
as well.
Yeah, that's true.
Not stuck, like the little nubs that grab the screw head can shear off.
Oh. Yeah, there's all sorts of different ones that you can use. Eric is using one that is, it's an adapter that plugs into the screwdriver itself.
Oh yeah, there are some dedicated screwdrivers that have that security bit on.
Those are the ones that I was talking about that I have. I have ones that are dedicated. They're blue handled. You can find them on eBay. They sell for probably about anywhere between $5 to $10. It's definitely worth purchasing, especially if you sometimes like to open up your games, or if you go game hunting and you want to make sure, if you do find a super rare game, that it is the correct board. Bring a cell phone with you. Bring a cell phone with obviously internet attached to it, or connected online. You need to be plugged into that matrix that we were talking about. And you know, you can pull up various different websites, just do a search for the game and look up, you know, the board.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
That exists?
Yeah, totally exists.
I didn't realize
Yeah.
video game
Almost every single video game out there has a website dedicated to, you know, there's websites that are dedicated to being able to do that.
Let's go play some Super Famicom.
Yeah. Okay. Let me see. All right, so as you guys can see, the game is now, the back is switched on the cart, and now we're gonna go ahead and pop it in. Bada bing. So now we can play this game without having to worry about stupid plastic stuff. So yeah.
This damn plastic, I don't know what to do with myself.
So thank you, Eric, for helping us with the modification. And yeah, that's about it for this episode of Noob Repairs. Stay tuned, we have more on the way.
Exciting.